Talk Radio. You're in to all things music.
I don't know. I still ask myself the question if I've made it or not. But I guess, looking in retrospect, I guess you can say that I have made it. But it's been a long journey, a wonderful journey. And the thing is that I've never really paid attention to it.
Welcome to Making It with Terry Woolman, the show that explores the secrets, successes, and strategies for making it in the music biz. And now, here's your host, Terry Woolman.
Welcome to the show, and thanks for tuning in. I want to let you know how much I appreciate you joining us on our show every week. And if you missed our last interview, you can hear it and all of our episodes at entertalkradio.com/makingit, or download our app and take us with you. So often I get asked questions about the creative process, so I created this show to focus on what it takes to have a lasting career in the ever-changing landscape of the music business. You are really in for a treat, as I've invited my friends, some of the best and brightest in music, to share their stories on how they have influenced the music that has shaped our lives. I guarantee you're going to love it. So let's get started. My guest today is Lenny Castro. They say that music is the language of the soul, and nothing could be truer for this musician. Lenny Castro was born in New York City on September 19th, 1956. He began playing in salsa bands with Johnny Colon and Eddie Palmieri at the age of 14. At age 19, he was discovered by Melissa Manchester, and shortly after moved to LA with Melissa's band, quickly establishing himself as a first-call studio musician. Lenny has recorded and toured with artists including Melissa Manchester, Rolling Stones, Elton John, U2, Joe Sample, Toto, Boz Scaggs, Ricky Lee Jones, Wayne Shorter, Adele, Glen Frey, the Eagles, Dan Fogelberg, Fleetwood Mac, Stevie Nicks, George Benson, Steve Lukather, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Rufus and Chaka Kahn, Kid Rock, Liza Minelli, Maroon 5, Dave Koz, Micheal Bublé, Justin Bieber, Justin Timberlake, David Sanborn, Amy Grant, the Crusaders, the Wallflowers, and it keeps going. Tom Petty, Dolly Parton, Clint Black, Dwight Yoachum, Rod Stewart, Al Jarreau, Bette Midler, George Duke, Joe Cocker, and Joe Bonamassa.
You can stop now.
I'm going to. There are more, but we're stopping at that. His new solo album. His new solo album is called.
Come on.
That's true. I know. We got to get to the conversation. Lenny's new solo album is called Hands of Silk and Stone. Please welcome my guest today, Lenny Castro. Hi, Lenny.
Yeah, how you doing, Terry? So good to be here, baby.
I'm doing great. It's so good to have you. And that's the short list. And I normally don't even go that long in an intro, but I actually think it's important just to give a broad stroke of your credits, because your life and your career, life, of course, life is challenging, and we'll get into that. You've had your challenges, as we've all had, but your career has been absolutely stunning and magnificent and blessed, and it's, it's pretty remarkable. Wouldn't you say? I mean, do you just kind of, do you kind of stand back every once in a while and just kind of wonder how this all happened?
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. I mean, I remember, when I first came out, one of the things that I told myself, well, I'm going to keep track of every album that I do. And 2 years later, I started losing track. And things just started rolling. I met the guys in the Valley, the Valley boys like Jeff Porcaro and Steve Lukather and all those knuckleheads. And things just, I just got I was in the right place at the right time. But looking back in retrospect, it's really amazing. I always, think back and say, how the hell did I do all that? How was that possible? But
and
you know what they say, when you love something so much, it's the love of it, the passion that you put into it. There are no boundaries, really.
Yeah, I agree. But there's some mojo on your life and career that has to do with your talent. It has to do with your heart, and your musicality, and then there's some, I don't know. We all have, you and I both have a select group of friends that have had some kind of magic, fairy dust, sprinkled on your lives, that you just have had these beautiful opportunities, and you haven't wasted your opportunities. You've shown up, always give 100%, show up early. Your gear is working. You're on point. I mean,
those are things that you have to do. I mean, those are things that you've learned. I mean, I all those things that you just named, I acquired before I even got into the circuit. Right. When I was in New York, I had my classical training, and that and all the other bands and everything that I did. It was like I saw guys mess up. I saw guys screw up really bad, and I would go and I would learn from those lessons. Oh, I'm not going to do what that guy did, But I always took music. I always took it seriously, and as far as like being on time and having your equipment right, and just having everything ready when it's time to go, it kind of was a thing that was installed in me at an early age, to be prepared. And I tell you what, just real quick, I remember, some of the old guys, when I used to work at the Frank Ippolito's drum shop, one of the first things that the old cats would tell you is that you better, when you get that call, you be ready.
Right.
Right. Don't be messing around, and don't, have your clothes right and your sticks ready and this and that. Papa Joe Jones was real famous for that. He would always say, man, you got to have your shit together, and you got to, it's not all about how you play and what you play, but how you look, how you speak, how you talk to people. Everything is involved in it.
And I'm so glad you're jumping into that. We'll circle back and talk about your early childhood and growing up in your family. But one of the things that I wanted to ask you was what was perhaps the most valuable lesson that you learned from working at the drum shop when you finished school? And you're already answering that, but what did you learn?
I think the most valuable lesson I learned was that I didn't belong there. I mean, I was there for a purpose, but it was just a brief purpose, and a very good one too. I mean, I learned in the short time I was there, I learned so much about drums and drummers and how the drums are made. But basically, when I got the call, Melissa Manchester called the drum shop looking for a percussionist that sang, and when they got the call, I think it was a guy named Frank Gallivan and a gentleman, another gentleman that worked there, a Japanese gentleman. Oh my God, Tanaka-san. They gave me the number to go audition, and they looked at me and they said, "You don't belong here, man. You got to get out.
Right.
You got to get out there. You got to get in the mainstream." And then when I left, they said, "If you don't get the gig, you can't come back here." Okay, so it was like do it or do it. There was no other option. Right. And they knew from hanging out with me and how persistent I was. I mean, I don't know how many times I tried to get a job at that place, and they turned me down like 4 or 5 times. And then finally, after I graduated high school, they gave me the job. And they were like, "Oh, this kid is really, And sometimes I used to just go there, just hang. Right. Just hang and see who would walk in the door. You never. I met Denny Sywell there. The first time I saw his beautiful face was at the drum shop, and then when I moved to LA, I got to meet him personally.
Right. Nice. Right.
But that lesson, that big lesson, was to just get out there. Get out. You don't belong. Don't stay stationary. Get the hell out. Get into the stream.
And you have said before to me that if it wasn't for Melissa Manchester, you wouldn't have a career.
Well, she found me, and she believed in me. I mean, she believed it, and she went with it. She says, "I think this kid's got what it takes," and the rest is all history. She put a lot of faith in me.
Yeah, but I asked. Melissa loves you, and we've all worked together before. I know, yeah, and I love her too. She's so fantastic. But Melissa had told me when she had met you at that first audition, that when you came in for her, that everything she threw at you, you just did. She wanted you. She had asked you to play different songs in different styles, and then she asked you to sing, and you sang, and she just said there was nothing Lenny couldn't do that I was asking him to do.
Oh, I was ready to go. I was just like those old jazzers told me. They told me, when you get that call, you got to be ready, and that's what it was. I was there to do. And I really didn't know too much about her before then. I knew she had a hit at that time, but before I got the call, I really didn't know too much. I didn't know anything about her, to tell the truth. Right. I might have heard about her because she was with Bette Midler for a while, and I used to work with Bette Midler in New York on a lot of her demos and stuff like that, and a few small live gigs. But Missy, she was. Like I said, I didn't know about her, and I remember sitting there at the audition, and like you said, they were throwing everything at me. Okay, let's go, let's play. Okay, can you sing? All right, can you do this? And I remember looking across, and there's James Newton Howard on keyboards, looking at me, going, "Who is this crazy kid?"
Right.
And then Cooker, Cooker the Percy, God bless his soul, he took me under his wing, and Kurt Bruner and David Wolford. That whole band became my family. They became my family, not only a road family, but when I moved to LA, they watched over me and gave me rides when I didn't, when I needed rides, and they were my aunts and uncles.
You moved to LA with Melissa and the band. I mean, isn't that what brought you out to the West Coast?
Exactly. And I tell you what, it was the best thing I could ever do. I mean, instead of just coming out here like a lot of people do, they would come out here and say, "Okay, I'm here."
Right.
But I came out here with a gig, which was a really good thing because Melissa was already hooked up. And so those hookups became my hookups, And her husband, then Larry Bresner, God bless him, he looked after me too, and he gave me some, "Hey kids, I'll teach you about the business type of talks and stuff." And just watching him how he worked in the business as Melissa's manager, how he did things. I learned a lot from watching those guys. That's the one thing that they had to do was listen. Watch, listen, and keep your mouth shut.
Right. So in addition to all of the musical mentoring that you were getting from these wonderful people, what kind of things were they teaching you about business, about how to handle your business, how to know what your worth was financially, like what to charge and when to do things for favors and when to not? And
it was never anything. I would just follow what everybody else was doing.
Got it.
I would ask questions. I said, "All right, what scale, or what's this, or what should I charge for a demo and stuff like that." Right. I did learn, hanging with them and seeing what they did and playing with them. Sometimes they would get calls to do something, and then they'd bring me along, and I just learned just being in the pool. I learned how to swim. I was there, and I was immersed in it, and like I said, I absorbed just about everything, not only musically, but what engineers were doing, what managers were saying, what musicians were writing. Emil Richards taught me how to fill out a doubles form. I mean, I got
an important lesson.
I got love from a lot of people. I got love from Joe Porcaro and Jeff. Jeff was the one who told me, "Listen, get yourself an accountant so you can have your business taken care of when you go on the road, and you don't come home to being evicted," which almost happened to me. And Melissa's people, their first producer that I had ever experienced was Vinnie Poncia, and watching how producers work. Vinnie introduced me to Richard Perry. Richard Perry introduced me to great men like Bill Schnee, you know, and I watched these guys work. I watched what they did. I watched what they said. I listened to them, you know, and I learned, you know. You know, there was such a wealth of information, and I was just there because I loved being in music. I was very proud to be in the music business. So, and you know,
and that hasn't changed. You still have that quality. You still are in love with music, and you you still bring passion and gratitude to every opportunity that you show up for.
I mean, there's still, you know, there are still those moments, and they still happen where, you know, where you're on stage or you're playing and you kick your head back and close your eyes, and it's just free flight, mental free flight, you know, kind of almost astral projecting, and that still happens, and I still feel that joy of being able to play and perform, and thank God, knock on wood, physically, I'm still able to do what my brain wants me to do. You know,
well, how do you stay physically healthy, Lenny? Especially with all the traveling that you do. Do you have health tips or a regimen that you do?
Oh my God! You know, drink a lot of water and be careful what you eat. Try not to eat late at night. Yeah. Oh, there are so many, you know, some of these things that living on the road is not easy because you lose your regular regiment, that you have at home. And you know, you're on the road, you're on and off a bus, you're in and out of hotels. Sometimes you're eating at strange times, you know, especially late at night, which is kind of like the worst thing to do. Right. And then, you know, you eat on the bus, and then from there you go to your bunk and you're laying there. You know, it's not the greatest thing in the world, but you know, I've learned that, you know, maybe what I eat after the show is a very important thing, and how much. You know, maybe a salad or something like that. Trading in the burgers and the pizzas for other things. Something a little bit more, you know, a little bit more healthy for you. Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, you know, it doesn't get any easier. You know, I got one bad knee that's kind of talking to me every now and then, and little things that age brings to you. You have to deal with on the road. And fortunately, I haven't been anything really too bad. I mean, I can still run around. Well, not run, but a slow trot would be fine for me now. You know,
I can relate because we're the same age. We were both born in 1956. And by the way, happy birthday!
Yes, sir.
You just had one.
Happy birthday to you, sir.
Thank you. Let's take it back to growing up in New York and your family. Sure. I know that your dad Hector Castro played piano, and your stepfather George gave you your first pair of congas when you were 5 years old, and also a drum kit. Did growing up in a musical family give you the support and encouragement to follow your musical dreams?
Oh, by all means. Because I don't want to get too much into my personal thing, but you know, I mean, my real dad wasn't around when I was younger, and so my stepdad, who was not very musically inclined, had the greatest ears for music, though. He loved good music, and him and my mom had a great record collection, and they would always, he took me to clubs. I mean, just because he was not a musician didn't mean that he did not have an influence on me. He put a real heavy work ethic into me, as far as, if I'm going to do something, he was like, if you're going to do something, you got to be number one, okay? Let's not mess around here. Let's not fuck around. Let's, you know, go, you know, number two. Yeah, there's lots of number twos, you know? So, I mean, Dad, you know, he you know, like I said, even though he didn't have a musical bone in his body, God, he loved jazz, and he loved Latin music, and he loved to dance. And every now and then he'd grab my bongos and he'd try to play them, and he'd get a little frustrated. Go, oh, well, you play them, and give them back, you know. But like he said, he influenced me. All the stuff that he listened to were all classics, you know, milestones from Miles Davis, Art Blakey's, you know, the album with Moanin'. I mean, I wore that out. I used to listen to, my bedtime stories were Lord Buckley albums. The stories that Lord Buckley, I'm your hip to Lord Buckley.
Right. And
the
old,
also, the Bohemian storyteller.
Right. And you also, you listen to a lot of things. You listen to jazz, rock, and classical, anything.
Country western too. My mom was a big country western fan of the originally the original form of it, the old style of it.
Yeah,
she loved
cowboy
it.
Music.
She loved it. She loved that kind of music, and I listened to everything, anything and everything that was music or a sound. I'd listen to it.
So you learned integrity and commitment and focus when you were a kid in your family. Mm-hmm. That's what it sounds like, as well as music.
Yeah, when I first started going to Borough White Orchestra was really, that's where you really you have to understand discipline.
Right.
Very. It's there was one conductor. My God, he was a fearsome guy, Mr. Rosenthal. He could throw a pen. I saw him throw a pen directly at a trumpet player who was talking too much. Threw it right at him from across the whole orchestra, and got his attention. And from that point on, Mr. Rosenthal was the center of his attention.
Right.
But he demanded, if you were going to be there, he said, if you're going to be here, you have to adhere to the rules and what we do and, how this is done. It's just not running around. This ain't no playground.
Which also prepared you really well for your time at the High School of Music and Art.
Yes, definitely. So
when you went in there, did you feel at home because there were a lot of other like-minded, focused? I didn't
know that there was anything like that. I auditioned for both music and art and performing arts. Mm-hmm. And I remember auditioning and going to the schools to do the audition, going, wow, look at this. Everybody here is an artist. Everybody. And it was great. It was great to be amongst your own kind.
Right.
Yes. A lot of the people in my neighborhood didn't really understand why I was wearing bell bottoms and why I was wearing Nehru jackets and paisley shirts. Because I was into not only black music, but I was into Hendrix. I was into a lot of different things. But the neighborhood cats didn't really understand that. The people in music and art totally got it. Everybody was immersed. I'd look around. Each person had their own muse on their head, just beating them over the head with creativity, from the artists to the musicians. And everybody just young and full of energy. It was an amazing place, an amazing time to be. Definitely. So, and it really helped to formulate me.
What a wonderful experience that you got to have doing that. What were your dreams and goals when you were a kid? Did you have any, or were you just playing music and having fun?
Well, in those days, we had record albums, and I used to stare at those record albums and read those credits and say, one of these days, my face is going to be there, and I turn around and say, one of these days, my name's going to be back there.
Me too. Me too, Lenny.
That was my dream.
Well, that was our generation of devouring album credits and flipping them over and reading who did what and inserting our name
the
there.
Artwork too. The artwork, there was so much creativity that went on in those covers, man. They were crazy. Oh, they were beautiful. Unbelievable. Yes. Oh, my God. Yeah.
Talking about dreams and goals, what are your dreams and goals now at this point of your life?
Well, I've just, every day I play and every time I work, is another realization of my goal is just to be a musician and just to play. But I've just released my new album, which was a big, bigger than bucket list. It was something that I just needed to do. Yeah. Which I've accomplished on my own, I'm hoping, just to continue on and create more music, in the near future, and maybe even put something together live based on my situation, But right now, I'm very happy working with Toto. I'm back with my boys. Right. We're doing a lot of work, and we're having a really wonderful time. And me and Lukather are still wondering, how the hell did we get here? And nobody told us that we were getting old. We didn't get the old notice.
Right. You have also said that one of the best things that Toto, one of the biggest favors that Toto did for you was not asking you to join them as a permanent band member. When you started.
Jeff was the one who said, hey, count your blessings, man, because this is not an easy thing, being in a band and having to, well, in those days, you have to adhere to a lot of different people, producers,
right? Yeah,
record company geeks, managers, all kinds of people were kind of at your heels, Right. And he always told me, he says, everything that the band goes through, you have to go through. We take a loss, you take a loss. Mm-hmm. And he told me one time, I came back from a Stevie Wonder tour, and I came back, I think it was one of the first ones I did with Stevie, and I was raving. I was like, I went to Jeff's house, I said, Jeff, I just got back from Stevie Wonder tour. And he just looked at me and says, yeah, right, that's fun for you. We can't do that.
Right.
We have to go to people and ask for, we have to ask permission just to play on somebody's album, let alone go on the road.
Oh, that's horrible. Right.
And I kind of, that kind of humbled me for a minute. I was like, oh, shit, well, okay, I get it. I get it. I've, even though I've not been a member per se as far as ink on paper goes, my heart has always been with them, with the guys. My heart and my playing has been a part of their thing. Jeff, as soon as me and Jeff played together on that Diana Ross album, Baby It's Me, we clicked. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of like a kismet thing. I was meant to be there because he dragged me. Yeah. Well, not dragged me, but not involuntarily, that's for sure. But he took me to every session that he wanted that he did. He wanted me to be there all the time. And when the Toto thing was formulating, I was right there. And that's how I got into the Africa thing, and which is such an honor to be a part of such a bombastic tune. It's got a life of its own, and every time I hear it, it's like, I still go back to the times when we recorded it, and me and Jeff sitting there face to face recording that groove onto 2-track. Onto 2-inch tape. Right. You tracked drums and percussion together live on that song? Yeah, that was the first thing that we did. Me and him played that groove, and we filled up a 24-track tape, and then we checked out that 24-track, and I think it was the best 8 or 16 bars. I don't know. There's a little, I'm not sure which it was, and we looped that tape, and then we played that loop to another machine, and that meant physically taping the tape together and looping it around the control room and using mic stands as cap stands, running that tape and recording it onto another 24 track. And that's the track that that's the machine that we started recording on. This was stuff that we were doing before samples and loops and all that stuff was even invented or even a thing. Right, yeah. It was incredible. It was incredible to watch these guys do this stuff. I was like, wow, this is incredible. And again, you're talking about not officially being a Toto member, but by this point, it's kind of like common law marriage, because you've been together so long. Your family with those guys. It means nothing to me at this point right now. I mean, as far as that, when people ask me that, it's not an issue. It's not an issue at all, you know. So I want to ask you, what your formal drum training is, because one of my personal favorite tours that I saw you on multiple times was when you were in Joe Sample's trio, and at one point, you and Joe came up with this idea of creating a hybrid drum/percussion kit, and it was fantastic. What's your drum background, and how did that conversation come about with Joe? And oh my God! Well, let's start right there. That conversation came about. Me and him used to hang out at the Baked Potato a lot. Mm-hmm. In fact, that's how before we started playing. That's how we met, was hanging at the Potato. Late at night, sitting around complaining about some of the sessions and some of the knuckleheads we had to work with. You believe this guy? He wanted me to play this shit, man. So, and then one day Joe turned to me and says, "Hey man, you're a percussionist." I says, "Yeah." So come play with the Crusaders. So I started playing with the Crusaders. Yeah. So move forward. Another conversation at the Baked Potato. Joe looks at me and says, "Man, I'm tired of all these musicians, man. I'm tired of all this, this and this and that. And I just want to break it down to just bass and drums and me." Mm-hmm. And I looked at him. I said, well, yeah, well, who are you going to get for drums? And he said, well, you got to come up with some shit. You got to come up with some different shit. I know you play drums, and I know you play percussion, so work this shit out. Make something different. And he pushed me into this, and I was like, oh, my God. Right. What the hell am I going to do? I had no experience on doing any of this stuff. Mm-hmm. So what I did was I basically got a little bit of time at the place that was storing my equipment, and I spent some time with half my drum set and half that, and then I started putting things together. It took me about a week to get the setup that I came up with. Mm-hmm. And then I just started learning as I started playing. I didn't really practice on the set. I just started playing Joe's music. I started applying, interpreting, and doing things and changing things up. And every time I sat at that setup, I would come up with new combinations and learn something new. Now, as far as my drum background goes,
yeah,
I'm self-taught. I never really took any lessons. Okay. I mean, I hung out with a lot of drummers. I got a little bit from Elton John. I got a little bit from Papa Joe. I got a little bit from watching a lot of guys playing drums. Ringo Starr was one of my favorite drummers. Of course, you know, Noel Redding and Mitch Mitchell. That whole combination. Noel changed my life as far as, well, Hendrix changed my life, and that whole Are You Experience thing just put me in a whole different world. You know, but as far as drums, I'm self-taught. I just picked up a lot of shit from a lot of other people, watching people play, but I never really got any lessons per se.
Well, then, in a way that makes sense because, you know, it created a freedom for you. You certainly were well-trained enough and well-rounded enough as a musician that when Joe challenged you, you put this hybrid kit together, and then there was a built-in freedom to that as well, because this was not a traditional approach. You know, there was nothing you could do traditional to make it work. So you had to just be open. Joe said one thing. He said, one thing that he said when he was talking about coming up with this idea, he said, I want to be able to play my chords and play and maybe to reinvent some of my shit, and I don't want to have to worry about if the guitar player or this guy's playing the right chords or blah. So that freedom also came to me in the setup, the same freedom. I had to, I knew how to play drums. I knew how to play congas and percussion. I just had to put it together. Right.
And use a little bit of my ambidexterity and a little bit of, just the stuff that I've done, just use, I got to use just about every piece of knowledge that I had. Mm-hmm. And like I said, every time I would sit down on that set and play Joe's music, I would learn something new combinations of instruments for different things. It was a beautiful, beautiful experience, and like I said, every night it was a learning experience, but a creative one. I wish we would have recorded all of those things, man, because I swear that it would have been an amazing album to put out.
It was exquisite. That trio.
Joe would even surprise himself. He would look at me and go, "Wow, I actually did that." That was cool. But I hope that answered both of your questions. Yeah,
it did. And it leads me to my next question, Lenny, which is one of the qualities that makes you unique as a percussionist. And I'm saying this because we've played together live and we've recorded together as well. One of your unique qualities as a percussionist is that you play both melodically as well as rhythmically. Yeah.
Can
you talk about your approach? When you're in the studio. It's just the way
I hear things. Yeah, when I listen, I don't just listen to the percussion and the drums. I've always listened to bass parts. I've always listened to what guitar players are playing. Because sometimes I had to lock in. There's been a lot of sessions that I've had to find my space between the bass player, the drummer, and the guitar player, who sometimes could be in my register, depending on what he's doing. I've actually done bongo parts with a guitar part, with a kind of a muted, plucky sound, which kind of were a great combination.
Well, we had that experience together when you played on my Christmas record, A Joyful Noise, where just because of your scheduling, I ended up having to record you before we brought in Ricky Lawson and Abe Laboriel on bass and drums. So, which I've never done before, but I knew that it would work because of who you are. But in a way, it created a really cool record for me that was a little bit different, because instead of building the foundation of the house, we sort of built the foundation and then put the roof on with you, and then filled in the middle. And there's, it's really, that's a cool part of that record. That makes it really special for me, is that because all we did was we had my guitar and piano parts, and then you came in, and there's a lot of beautiful interaction. It was kind of a gift. I was a little in a panic about it when we first talked about doing it that way, but it actually was so much more interesting because you never do percussion first. You do it last or simultaneously.
It's always different. Well, each song that we write and that we record requires its own attention. Not every two. There are no two songs that are recorded the same way exactly. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you have to build it from. Sometimes things get built from the drums. Sometimes things get built from a guitar part. That's how I write. I mean, sometimes I come up with a bass part that leads to something else. So sometimes you come up with this, a drum thing, and then maybe that leads to a melody. You never know. You just have to be open to those options.
Absolutely. And which leads to my next question, which we're already talking about. You've recorded with some of the top artists and producers in the world. What have you learned about music and about life from working with them?
Wow. Man, that's a good question. What I've learned from some of the producers I've worked with?
Yeah. And
I've worked with some of the best, and I mean, Tommy LaPuma comes to mind. He was one of my favorites and one of the all-time best. And I learned from him that you have to be patient with musicians and let them do what they do. There are some guys that really have a plan. Each producer has their own way of dealing with situations. Richard Perry had his way. You name them. Everybody has their own way of dealing with situations. But I've learned how they deal with a group of people to get them, just like a conductor, to get them to move into the same direction, and also, give the artist exactly what they're looking for. There's a real. I've learned, I guess, diplomacy through a lot of the producers that I've worked with. How they can talk. They'll talk to the artist in one way, and not in different ways, but talk to the artist, keep them cool, and then get the musician to go, dig, guys, this is what I want. Putting that whole unit together with the artist at the pinnacle, is quite a task. Quite a task, and it's very admirable. I've always wondered if I could deal with producing someone. I've never done it. I've never had the chance to, but I don't know if I could. I don't know. It's a lot of phone calls I have to make. I don't know.
It's not for the faint of heart. I'll tell you that.
I've heard. Believe me, I say that because I have a lot of friends who are like, "Damn, what a pain in the ass." I see what they go through.
I mean. And you just had this wonderful experience, I would imagine wonderful, producing your own record, Hands of Silk and Stone. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about that experience. What was it like being on the artist side of things?
This is very, very different for me. But people have called me an artist before this. Oh, Lenny, you're an artist, and I always go, no, I'm not an artist. I can't wear that nomenclature, because it's just not proper. I don't have a single. I don't have product. I don't have my own situation. So I'm not really an artist. Now I am, and now it feels so weird to be able to call myself an artist now. But I can do it justifiably. I can do it and say, yeah, I really am. Which is very cool. This whole experience of doing my whole solo thing has just kind of rejuvenated me. I've never experienced any of these kind of things. I've seen other people do it and go through it, stuff like that. But it's my experience was just wonderful. I mean, I'm still basking in it right now. I'll tell you the truth.
Well, don't miss out on any of the joy of this whole experience for you, because I'm one of many people I would imagine I know that are excited for you in that you finally put out your own record, and you're welcome, and thanks for doing it. And I want to know, Lenny, what cleared the path for you to make this record? Is it that you feel like you finally had something you needed to say as an artist, or is this something you've been wanting to say for the past 20 or 30 years or longer?
It's been something that I've been wanting to do for a very, very long time. I've had a lot of people tell me, a lot of people tell me, you got to do your own album. You should do your own album. And so finally, for about 5 or 6 years prior to my 60th birthday, my muse was hitting me like crazy. I got into GarageBand, the iPad, and we became inseparable. And the technology has made it so immediate to get your ideas down that this is what really made it possible for me to do it. And so I started, GarageBand was smoking. Ideas were coming out. I'd be sitting there watching TV, coming up with tunes, and for about 4 or 5 years straight, maybe 6. So comes to my 60th birthday, and I'm pretty much, I'm taking a lot of them. I'm to that point where I'm thinking that I'm overkilling on the album, on the demos. I'm adding too much junk.
Right.
So I kind of backed off. So my wife says, you got them all written. Now what are you going to do? And it just so happens that I had like a 3 or 4 month break with Toto. Mm-hmm. So I just said, well, shoot, I guess this is my album right here. So I started listening to them, picking out the best ones that I wanted. And I just started to record. I transferred all my GarageBand stuff into Pro Tools, and I started the whole thing at that point, because my wife was like, what are you going to do with all this music? It's time. You got an album there. Let's do it. And so I was like, great. I had Pro Tools, and so I started replacing bass parts and guitar parts with some of the sounds that really weren't, the GarageBand sounds that... Right. Replacing it with real cast, sending out files, and the technology made it easy for me.
Right.
The technology that we have now has made it so that a person can do their own thing completely. And I used a couple of studios. When I recorded the drums, I used my friend's studio, Doug Bossy, the guitar player who's on there. I used his studio and his drum set, which was perfect. Brand new DW drum set in a great studio with my engineer and him, and it couldn't have been, and he didn't, and it was like, wouldn't take a penny for it. I still owe him a dinner, so. Yeah.
Well, that's, you just brought up a really good point, because there's such a beautiful part of our community where we do show up for each other as musicians and support each other when it's time to express yourself creatively. So I'm really glad you let people do that for you. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, a lot of people, some people say, well, how come you didn't, get a studio or put everybody, how can you do so? I said, well, you know what? You send this stuff to the right guy, and he's going to listen to it, and he's going to want to play on it, and he'll play on it. That's right. And then he'll just send it back. There's no interaction. There's a different kind of interaction going on. Right. It's the sending the files and having somebody do it at home, that's an interaction in itself. But it's not the old style, everybody in the same room coming up with their parts, Right. Yeah. It's a whole new way of doing things, but you're still getting you're giving them the musician the files, making it comfortable for him to do it at home. He's relaxed, he's digging it, boom, he's gonna give you your love. Send it back. Yep. And it's funny because every time I got a file back from somebody I would send it to, every time I got it out, my tunes would just grow. It was just like right in front of my ears. It was just like, oh, wow, real guitar. Oh, wow, real bass. Yeah. Or when I did the drums, everything just kind of grew. It was amazing, an amazing process. I don't know how the hell I did it. It's crazy. I still don't understand how he did it.
It's a wonderful record. I'm so happy again that you.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Made it.
Coming from a guy who's made so many as you have. Oh my goodness.
Thanks, Lenny. And we're going to share the post. We're going to share the link to your record so everybody can find
thank
it.
you.
As well as go to LennyCastro.com. That's really easy, but we'll put the other links up as well on the website.
I think the hardhands.com is the one that's working. Lenny Castro, I still have to work on setting that up. But
so hardhands.com.
Hardhands.com. Yeah, Lenny, like I said, Lenny Castro right now, I have to hook that up. I'm in the process of hooking that up. So
great. So let me ask you some short questions with short answers. As we're heading towards the end of our conversation. What inspires you? What inspires you?
Life inspires me.
Okay.
I don't know. Good musicians, great food, fishing. There's a lot of different inspirations.
Yeah.
Like I said, life in general for me inspires me. I've been very blessed and have done a lot of great things with a lot of great people, and that inspires me to do more, and to continue on. My wife inspires me. My kids inspire me. My fellow musicians, like you, inspire me to do more, But to tell you the truth, life in general inspires me to want to have more, to want to do more before I have to step to the next level,
And what motivates you?
The love of music.
Yeah,
the love of music motivates me to be able to play. Looking forward to that next gig or the next concert. That motivates me. There are a lot of things that motivate me, but I think that's number one. The love for music motivates me all the time. It's been my motivation since I was 3 years old. And it still motivates me and keeps me excited and keeps me going forward. Definitely.
And what disappoints you?
The lack of musicianship that goes on in the music business these days.
Amen.
And the lack of respect that real musicians don't. The lack of respect. That's it's so inappropriate. To tell you the truth, I mean, in America, my album probably. I mean, my shit won't fly here, but it'll probably fly better in Europe and in Japan because they're professional listeners out there,
right?
And I know you know what I'm talking about.
I sure do.
Our listeners still lack a maturity about them as far as music goes. We still have some, jazz, a lot of jazz lovers and Latin music lovers and stuff like that. But that whole mainstream of music, your Kanye's, your Beyonce's, all those guys that are making multi-billions on what? There's a lot of perpetrating going on that really bums me out. And fortunately, I have not really been too connected to any of that nonsense.
Right, yeah.
To tell you the truth.
Which,
I don't,
Well, a lot by choice, right? I mean, you don't say yes to everything, do you? Do you do some... or do you?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I do say yes to everything, pretty much.
I actually kind of do also. Everything. Wow. Okay.
I mean, I've done everything. I mean, I've done like the Dickies. The Dickies were like a real punk rock. Their music was crazy, and they were like, it was almost like trashy music. But I got in there. It wasn't a phone call that I don't think I've turned anybody down.
Okay.
Now live, there are people that I won't work with. The Diana Ross, I won't work with her anymore. Ricky Lee Jones live. I mean, I work with her in the studio, but not live anymore. Chris Isaac, me and him never saw eye to eye, and I probably will never work with him again.
Right.
For my own reasons, Sure. But as far as like being in the studio, and I worked with Chris in the studio. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
That's how the whole thing started. Was that I got called by his manager to come play on his stuff, and then I played on it, and then she decided, well, you got to come on the road with him. And I should have said no. I should have just did the session and not gone there. But I'll leave that for another time.
Right.
But as far as sessions go, I you know, what did Ricky Lawson used to say? I don't turn down anything but my collar.
Right.
My brother, I never forgot that. Yeah, there's a lot of things he used to say that I still remember. I loved him so much. We were close.
Yeah.
I miss him a lot.
Was special. I do too. I do too.
Yeah.
We are.
Sorry, long answer.
Well, no. It's a great answer. And by the way, I'm so, speaking of Ricky, I'm so grateful that we got to make a final record together, you and Ricky and I and Abraham. I'm forever grateful for
I'm looking at his picture right now. His picture is always on my desk with him and Jeff and Carlos Vega.
Yeah.
He's right next. He's right there with my boys, my guardian angels. I love him.
So, Lenny, we have about 5 minutes left in the show, and I want to get to the closing questions. The first is it's a two-part question, which is what does making it mean to you, both personally and professionally? And also, can you share 3 tips for success that have driven your career?
Oh, making it.
Yeah. What is making it?
I don't know. I still ask myself the question if I've made it or not. But I guess, looking in retrospect, I guess you can say that I have made it. But it's been a long journey, a wonderful journey. And the thing is that I've never really paid attention to it. I've just done. I just look forward. I don't sit around and go, well, what have I done? I've always just leaned forward, head forward, eyes forward, and do, not worry about anything else. Mm-hmm. And as far as like tips for making it?
Yeah. Well, 3 tips for success that have driven your career.
Be diplomatic, be able to talk with people, and, being a session musician, you have to be able to take directions, and certain things need to be done, and you just have to have the right personality for it. Always have your guns loaded and ready to go. Have your craft honed all the time, ready to go. Where you don't know when you're going to get that call. Be ready. Mm-hmm. And always look sharp. Miles Davis was very, very, very adamant about that. Always look sharp. Not that I do, but
Jonathan Moffat told me that too many years ago. He said, "Look, even when you get off the bus and go from the bus to the venue, you might run into TV crews or things like that. And first of all, not only are you representing the artist, but you're representing yourself. And you want to look sharp. So that's coming from a guy who's a t-shirt and jean guy. So,
I
know it's kind of funny to hear you say that, but it's still, it doesn't make it any less true. My final question, Lenny, that I ask all of my guests is: at this point of your life, with everything that you know to be true, what would you tell your younger self?
Oh my God!
And you can take your time on this one.
What would I tell myself? To my younger self?
Yeah, young Lenny.
Oh no! Oh my goodness! What would I tell myself? Start writing music earlier. Mm-hmm. I wish I would have applied myself more at an earlier age. But I was too busy running around making other people's music sound great and stuff like that. And songwriting was just so far away from me, Like I said earlier, the technology has made things so immediate, But
absolutely.
I don't know. I guess that's it.
So Lenny, we've got about 3 minutes left. So what would you like to share with our audience in the last couple of minutes? Anything you want to talk about or confess or complain about confess or complain?
No confessions. No. Right. No. Well, I can say, I'm just going to say I'm still on the road with Toto. We're getting ready to go out on another U.S. tour. starting on the 19th of this month. We'll be hitting out Florida, the East Coast, and hopefully up near the Northeast. Plus, we're going to go Australia, Japan, and New Zealand coming up soon. So there's lots of work. I'm hoping that I will put together a solo band to perform my solo stuff at one time. As soon as I get the time to do it, I really, really would like to perform my music live once or twice. I'm thinking maybe doing it in Japan, and if somebody here would like to have me perform, maybe do it here. But I think my initial performance, my first performance of my music will probably be in Japan. I think it would be received better, there, and maybe it will create waves to come here, But I got to do another one. I'm already started working on some stuff. Getting
smiling.
some ideas together. I always get these new electronic. I got this new thing on my pad. What is it? What is it called? Oh my God! It's called the Electribe Wave, and I've been working out. It's a new thing by Korg, and so sometimes machines and sounds inspire you to write things.
Absolutely,
it's really fun.
Yeah.
So these new gadgets and stuff like that, I'm getting into them. You have to stay up with the technology. That's another thing that I should say really quickly is you got to stay up with the technology, because if you don't, you get left behind. I'm into Ableton. I got the Pro Tools, the Seaboard. I've gotten into the A-frame. I've got Wave Drum. You have to stay up with what's going on, and it's very important. Very important. But don't lose your real instrument. Don't lose your real self in it.
Right. That was one of that reminds me that was one of the things that Ricky Lawson, our friend, said when the Lynn drum machines came out, and everybody, all the drummers are complaining, and Lenny said, I was the first drummer to go buy a Lynn drum machine and start learning how to program, and I always remember that as well. So we are pretty much out of time, and I just want to say I'm really glad to hear that you've already got the fire in your belly to be thinking about a second record.
Yes.
That's great. I love that you are seeing yourself now as the artist that I've always seen you as, and I think a lot of people.
I've got the bug now, so
good.
My muse is not going to give up.
Good. So anyway, Lenny, thank you so much for spending the hour with us, and everybody, thank you for you joining us, Lenny Castro and myself, for this last hour.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you so much for giving me the time. I appreciate your love, man. Take it easy.
Yeah.
All right.
We'll see everybody next week.
Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.
Tune in again next week for another great episode of Making It with Terry Woman.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al Di Meola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear from Eclectica Studios. I'm a full-time mixing and recording engineer. I work with Grammy winners, labels, and indie artists, using state-of-the-art digital mixing and restoration tools and the very best in analog gear. Really, though, it's my ability to bring tracks to life and fulfill your vision for your music. This has made me sought after by producers and artists worldwide. So spend your time working on music and not chasing a mix down a rabbit hole. Go to timdolbear.com and check out our free one-song mix offer.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.